if the podcast went perfectly, then someone would pursue their dreams because of you. Someone who's not currently pursuing their dreams would say, Tim Ferrar inspired me to go and pursue my dreams.
Yeah, I mean, that's the end goal for me, right? It's just to help that younger kid that I used to be. Obviously, you've seen my content.
Yeah.
And I've had to do some finding of, like, where exactly to take it, because I feel like I've gone all over the place at times. But it's like, yeah, I've realized now that that's the goal with some of my content. It's like, how can I help the kid that I used to be, lost, no money, like trying to figure out how to navigate, the years after college, in my case, 21, 22, 23, almost around your age.
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna get that advice from you today, bro.
Yeah, hopefully. But yeah, like that's been the goal, is trying to help that kid just kind of figure out where to go or how to get there.
In one of your pieces of content, you described your own content as a shotgun spray, and I imagine what you're saying with that is that. Also, feel free to.
Should I just? This looks kind of funky now.
I mean, it's up to you.
Yeah, it's all good.
Would you rather? You can clip one on if you think it's better.
I'll clip this one on. Just double mic'd up.
Okay. You described your content as a shotgun spray, which I imagine is a point about the niche. And what a lot of these people will tell you is that you gotta niche down to be successful. I don't agree, because I think that niching down works because you develop an audience that likes one thing, and I think that it's always easier to develop an audience that likes one thing. But I think in the long run, it's a bad decision because humans don't like to do the same thing over and over again. I think the main reason 9 to 5 is being so crushed in the freedom world right now is not because the 9 to 5 job sucks that much, but because you do the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
So people will try to escape the 9 to 5 and start a content career, and they'll be like, okay, I gotta niche down, and they'll be like, what can I make content about? I want to make content about traveling. And then for 3 years they make travel content and it's amazing, and then they realize that they don't want to travel for the rest of their life, but their audience only cares about them traveling, and they're in the same predicament that they were trying to avoid with the 9 to 5. It's also just not true too. There's plenty of people who have switched their careers over and over and over again, and it just depends, like the personal brand. Are people a fan of you? 'Cause if they're a fan of you, you can go do whatever you want.
Yeah.
People will follow.
Yeah, no, I actually agree with you 100%. I think you may have interpreted that reel wrong.
Hopefully,
Yeah, I think it was more so, the shotgun spraying was like more so me creating content for a handful of different like directions around the same, not niche, but like I feel like most creators have like a general area of what they kind of want to talk about or what their content revolves around. And I think I agree with you 100%, to not niche down to like one specific thing. But I think you can use your personal brand and use the things that you like to do, or whatever those things may be. Like, for example, surfing, or for you growing up in San Diego and traveling. It's like, that's why someone I think will resonate with you more than the other guy that's only talking about leaving his 9 to 5.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, this guy left his 9 to 5. He also surfed. He also rides the dirt bike. He also trains for Ironman. Like, that's the connection I think that I'm trying to build with people. And I think that's the strongest part with personal branding. And I actually joined Tom Noski. I don't know if you know him.
I know.
Australian creator, big guy. This man is making like a lot of money from his personal brand. He's monetized it very well, and he teaches a cohort.
Yeah.
So I joined his, and that was like one of the biggest messages he had is like, don't niche down. Tap into different angles of your content in your life, and like, that's how you're going to connect with these people, and then provide them obviously with a solution to whatever their problem might be.
But you know what that makes me think of? It's like when you like a musician, let's say, and you like them first because of their music. You go, oh, their music's really good. But think about the people that you're really like a super fan of. I feel generally what happens is you like them for their art. So you go, okay, their music's really good. and then you see that they do an interview on YouTube, right? And then they start to get deep and talk about how they struggle with something in their childhood, and you're like, oh my gosh, I struggle with the same thing.
Yeah.
Or, oh my gosh, he played lacrosse and I played lacrosse. And then the more like you share all the different assets of your life, the more someone can become a super fan because they can relate with you on different, it's not just like, oh, I love your music, but now that I know you went through the same trauma I went through, well, that just makes me feel this much closer.
Yeah.
And you played the same sport I played, that makes me feel this much closer.
You play lacrosse?
I did play lacrosse, and I saw you played team captain.
Oh, world, dude. San Diego, lacrosse.
Great sport. We talked about, I'm very interested in this topic because I kind of want to move out of San Diego. And I mean, look at this freaking weather. This place is, I'm so blessed to have grown up here, and it's one of the greatest places on earth. But I feel for a number of reasons that I want to move out. I think that other cities will offer better entrepreneurial opportunities. And I think that living in one place your whole life kind of is a bit safe. I asked you, the number one city I was thinking about was Austin, Texas, and you said the same thing.
Yeah.
Why?
A little backstory. When I was around your age, actually,
Yeah.
the year after I graduated college, my buddy and I, so I worked for a digital marketing agency, and my buddy started it. He's my age. Him and his older brother, who's about 30 now. And I worked for them for a while, but we decided to go out to Austin because his older brother had moved out there.
Yeah.
To like really log in. And I didn't really understand at the time what he was doing. But now, like today, it's like, okay, it makes complete sense. Like, isolate yourself and focus on that one thing, being building his, digital marketing agency. So he went out there, and we went out as well, and we spent like 2 months. Like, it was like piss cold weather. Like,
Yeah.
it ended up not being the most ideal, but we had this cool spot near Lake Travis. And yeah, dude, Austin was a cool spot, and there's like a lot of young people there, and it's not too expensive. Like, it's pretty affordable for the younger generation like us, and it's like it's up and coming for sure. I was talking to my buddy about this, who lives there now, kind of similar to me, same, like one of my best friends actually. And he moved out there just to like focus on himself. Like, ended up getting a dog, like found a girlfriend out there. Like, he's got his own little place and he's loving it. And I was talking to him about it because I was about to move to LA right before I moved to this spot in Carlsbad. And I would have been with a filmmaker guy in LA, and then I decided to stay here with my hometown friends. But I was thinking about it, it's like Leonardo DiCaprio, the Patrick Bateman, Patrick Bateman, what's his real name?
I don't know actors at all.
Okay, well, big name actors like who lived in like random cities or like grew up in like Michigan, a small town. Like, that guy didn't stay in his hometown to go become Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
I don't know where he's from, but like, the point. Like, he had to take a risk, go somewhere else, figure it out, even if he knew it was going to be like, okay, this may not be as nice of a place to live, or maybe hotter in the summers or colder in the winters. But it's like, he realized that he needed to go somewhere else to build himself, so that he is able to then choose where he wants to, live the rest of his life or when. And I think that's like the stage that I'm slowly getting to with what I'm doing and where I'm at with my career. It's like, I'm realizing now, like, in order for this to work, in order for me to figure out how to grow my personal brand, like, to where I want it to be, I need to only focus on building that personal brand. And then for the time being, just do projects, commercials, ads, whatever, to fund my life. And then focus on building personal brand.
Taking those crutches away.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, I still live at home. It's very economically convenient, but there is just a level of like safety, comfort that you just have being near to home. LA is a really interesting place. I think for a long time, definitely in my industry, in the creator industry, it felt like the only place you could go to succeed. Like, there was like a good 5-year period where every single YouTuber lived in LA. And now it's starting to diversify. New York City's becoming, I would say, pretty much equal, and Austin's up there too. My podcast mentor, Danny Miranda, he lives in Austin, and he calls it the podcast capital of the world because Joe Rogan, Chris Williamson, Danny Miranda. I also say it's like the comedy capital of the world. And like you said, for our age, I mean, there's definitely people our age in LA and New York because they're so massive, but like the ratio of people our age to other people is really awesome in Austin. And I just think that overall, I don't know how this grocery bag got here. Overall, Austin is kind of like, I don't think a city's competed with New York and LA in a long time, and I think Austin is competing with New York and LA.
Dude, yeah, I 100% agree. Like, I don't know anywhere else that is like that talked highly upon than Austin right now.
Miami's kind of coming up too. There's a lot of people that go Miami, but it's like more of that LA, like in the sense where Miami is a new hotspot, but it has a lot of the downfalls of LA that like what they call the fake culture, the
clout.
party, the clout.
The clout.
And whereas I feel like Austin, I mean, this could be a total assumption, but I do feel like Austin is definitely less of that clout chasing culture than LA and New York.
Yeah.
And Miami.
I agree with that.
You have a tattoo there.
Right here?
Yeah, push until the wheels fall off.
Yeah, I just got this about a month ago. It's funny, I have probably like 8 or 9 tattoos now.
Yeah.
One of my ribs. This one is my newest tattoo here on the forearm, like the most visible I've gotten so far. I have one here, a few on my legs, but like I'm not one to care really. Like if someone asks me like, hey, what does your tattoo mean? It's like, first of all, it's like I don't really care to like explain myself about it.
Yeah.
And then second of all, like half the things I have are just kind of like for fun, like random. I just liked it. I got it. So it's like some of them have meaning, some of them don't. But the ones that do have meaning all have like traced back to like different sections or years of my life to like a moment.
Yeah.
And it's like I see it and I look back and I'm like, it's a cool way to look back at like how far you've come, even if it doesn't feel like you're at the level you wish you were at. Yeah.
So what's your deepest meaning tattoo?
I would say probably I have one on my thigh. It says Chief, and it was for my grandfather who passed away. Is a Master Chief in the Navy. So
oh wow,
it was cool to be able to get that. Both my grandfathers passed away recently, like the last couple of years. So I've gotten a couple for them, which is cool. But I guess like more entrepreneurial side is what you're probably looking for. Is
I mean,
the push until the wheels fall off, dude. And it's just kind of been my headspace mantra for the last like year or so, and just gotta keep pushing, dude.
Are you a David Goggins fan?
I like him. I'm not like a fanboy, but like I do listen to him, and you know who I'm a big fan of is Hermosi.
Yeah, I did see you quote him a couple times.
I've been doing that a couple times. I've been testing that with content, like pulling some quotes that resonate with me really, heavily, and then spicing them into the content and seeing how they do. And
you're a big Notion guy.
Dude, you should download my
I was looking at it.
Look at it, yeah.
I really hate templates. Not yours specifically, but I tried using Notion like 8 months ago.
Yeah.
And when you come onto Notion, it's a little overwhelming because you have so much freedom to do whatever you want with it that it's like, what do you do? And so the first time I tried it, I was just like downloading templates for everything I thought I would use. And then I hated it and I stopped using it. But the next time I went to an event called Creator Camp and Notion sponsored the event and they gave free lifetime pro Notion. And so I was like, okay, if I have free lifetime pro Notion, I should use it. But this time I used no templates and so I just made everything myself and I like it way better. But anyways, I was going to say, I have a list in my Notion of all my favorite quotes.
Yeah.
And before I had it in Notion, I had it in Notes app on my phone. And I've been collecting quotes for like 5 years.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of quotes that I love collecting quotes.
Dude, that's funny you say that because like the only reason I'm like proficient in Notion was because I worked in that digital marketing agency. So we use like ClickUp, Notion, Monday.com, like all these kind of like project management tools. So that's why I was able to kind of figure it out. But like same as you, bro. Like I was trying to like figure out the best way to do it. I had seen a couple other guys' templates or like workflows. Yeah. And I basically just like started building mine from scratch. So like that's essentially what it is. Yeah. It's just my process, I guess, from day one of Notioning.
What do you think of ClickUp versus Notion? Because it's kind of the same product.
Yeah, it's similar. It's definitely similar. I think Notion is really good for like solopreneurs or like content creators or like small teams. Yeah. ClickUp, the thing that was best about it is like as the agency I worked for grew and got bigger, we had a lot more employees, and not everyone is going to be as like quick on their feet and decision making as the guys at the top. And so it creates like a way that you can remind people that they have X, Y, and Z due, or they need to turn this in, or it needs to be approved or checked or sent to him. It's really good for like an agency, bigger crew, I'd say.
Have you heard of the IKEA effect?
No.
So the IKEA effect says that this was tested in a study that if you buy furniture from IKEA, you're more likely to be satisfied with it, not because the furniture is better, but because you have to build it yourself, and the building it yourself gives you a sense of like attachment to the furniture. It's like, oh, I built this.
Yeah.
And I think that has been a huge part of the Notion craze, because when you first start it, it's a little overwhelming, but you build it yourself. Oh, it literally can be anything you want it to be. And then once you're like deep into it, you're like, people are these mega fans of it. And I feel like they're so attached to it because they've built it themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. That's a very good point. I never even thought about that. That's pretty smart marketing, honestly. It's funny though, because like most people, that's their least favorite part about furniture. It's like, dude, I don't want to build this shit.
Yeah. They don't realize it, because it goes back to the instant gratification. And you know what's a really interesting topic with that? So like everyone can tell you that instant gratification is bad. They'll tell you, oh, scrolling endlessly is bad. Drinking is bad. Smoking is bad. Like, but you know what people don't talk about is something I talk about is delayed gratification.
Yeah.
Or no, delayed disappointment. It's a concept that I came up with. So basically what delayed disappointment says is that someone might think I'm a depressed person or I'm an anxious person. You hear these things a lot. Depressed or anxiety. We have the highest rates of depression and anxiety we've ever had. But they might be depressed or anxious because of the food they're eating. But because you don't eat, like, let's say like a bunch of fried junk food, you don't feel anxious as you're eating it. It's not instant. If you eat junk food, you're going to feel anxious in a few hours or the next day. Yeah. So if I eat junk food today and I feel anxious tomorrow, the delayed disappointment, I might say, oh, I'm an anxious person, rather than the food that I ate made me anxious. Yeah. So then you don't know how to go about solving the problem, because you're not associating it to the causation, because it's delayed. Yeah. And so I always thought that was a really interesting concept of like the instant gratification versus that delayed disappointment.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. I think for me, it's like, if I go out and I have a few too many beers, like, I'll be like, dude, the next day it's like not even the physical feeling of being hungover for me. Yeah. It's like, it's the mental. It's like for another 4 or 5 days, like I feel out of whack. Like I feel like I'm behind. Like I should have been doing this. I should have been doing that. And it translates to like working out or training. Like I got to do a lot of running and biking for this triathlon stuff. Yeah. And it's like, if I miss a couple days, I'm like, it's not the in the moment missing it. It's like later that day or the next day. Yeah. I'm just like, bro, like, fuck, I should have fucking. That's funny. That's on point. Delayed disappointment.
I don't drink at all. I've been drinking. Yeah. I've been drinking over a year and a half. Haven't smoked, haven't taken any drugs. I try not to even drink. Like, I don't even drink. I don't want to say I don't drink coffee. I will drink it, but I try not to be like relying on it where people drink it every day. That's partially because I have an autoimmune disease. So when I drink alcohol, it just like wrecks me. But have you heard about the concept of discipline versus identity?
Explain it.
So discipline is not doing something that you want to do because you know it's better for you. Yeah. So like example, I want to go out and drink with my friends, but I'm going to choose not to go out and drink with my friends because I know that my Ironman training will be easier. Yeah. Or you could do it on the flip side. I don't want to go to the gym, but I'm going to go to the gym because I know overall I will be healthier and make me feel better. That's discipline. It's choosing to do something you know is better for you when you don't want to do it. Identity is choosing to do something because it is core to your being. So like, I'll give you an example. people always ask me like, how you're 22, you're 21 and 22. These are the years you chose not to drink. How do you choose not to drink? And I go, it's really not hard for me because when I have an opportunity to drink, it's not like I'm sitting there and I want to drink and I choose not to. There's really no discipline involved. It's in my identity for two reasons, which is, I'm super into health and fitness, and there's a brain doctor I really like called Dr. Amen. He's scanned over 20,000 brains, and he says that drinking alcohol, even once a week, like how your mom or dad might drink a couple glasses of wine, will permanently affect your brain over time. And so it's like, if I'm super into health and wellness, I have no interest in affecting my brain. The other thing is like, I'm quite religious, and the Bible says not to be a drunkard.
Yeah.
And I don't like the taste of alcohol. So it's like, I don't like the taste of alcohol. Bible says to be sober minded. Then it's like, in my identity, there's not even a point of doing it. And then it's like, so it's like, instead of focusing on not like having the willpower, I just focus on like why it's like not enjoy, like literally like I feel horrible the next day. I have an autoimmune disease. It affects my brain. There's zero win to it for me. And then I don't even like the social aspect of it, because I like to like hang out with more entrepreneurial people, and they're not the ones who are even in those places.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you nailed that 100%. Especially with like, I agree on the social stuff. I agree too. It's like, you almost have to put yourself in the room with people who are like, you know, treading in the right direction, or like not going out and drinking on a Friday night for no reason. And yeah, it's like, I'm starting to realize now, it's like, I'm not gonna lie, like I partied in college and high school, like I partied, you know, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. We had good times, but like now it's like at the point now where it's like, dude, this isn't good. It's not good for my mental.
Yeah.
And I think Chris or Hermosi are talking about that in one of their podcasts, where like people basically are drinking, and it's like, those people have that feeling of being like not, you know, necessarily the coolest, or like not fitting in.
Yeah.
But it's like, are those people the ones that are the coolest, or the ones that are the most successful, or like the people that are going out as drinking on Friday night, like at the club? It's like, for what? Like, what do you guys do? Like, why? And then I'll go to this thing to say what up to an old friend, or to hang out, and I'm there, and I'm just, the whole time, I'm just like thinking about how I shouldn't be here, how I should be working on this video, or how I should be, you know, preparing for my training in the morning, or like getting a good night's sleep. So it's like, I keep doing it, and I'm still learning how to like remove it completely. And I fucking applaud you for not drinking since what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even remember. I know the last time I drank was a Kid Cudi concert, but it's a long time ago.
Dude, that's a really tough thing to do, especially when you're young, and you probably have a handful of fellows that are like chirping you about it all day long.
Dude, it really just but then it goes down to my like identity, which is like, it's not that hard for me, because I think, one, because I'm a lot of my friends, I would say my friends are spread out between church people who are not big drinkers, and entrepreneurs who are not big drinkers, and creators, and my creator friends are not big drinkers. So it's like, I have noticed something too. I'll tell you, this is a huge hack if you're quitting drinking. If you go into the mindset that I want to drink less, then everyone will try to get you to drink. So if you go, hey guys, I'm training for my Ironman, I think I'm gonna take a month off of drinking, then people will be like, oh, just drink tonight. But if you go into the night and you say, I don't drink, no one will try to get you to drink.
Yeah.
It's like weird. It's like the conviction you have in the idea is how others will see it too. So it's like, even if you are just stopping for a little bit of time, I highly suggest everyone just says, I don't drink, because, and it also goes back to identity. When you say, I'm trying not to drink as much, you're identifying as a quitter. What do quitters do? They fall back, they relapse. If you say, I don't drink, you're identifying as a sober person. Yeah. Sober person. People start counting the days. I haven't drank in 30 days. So it's like, what? You're counting the days until you drink again. But if I just say I don't drink, it's like how you talk to yourself becomes your identity.
I heard about, totally. I heard something from, I forget who, but they're basically talking about like a group of people trying to like quit smoking or quit like tobacco or something like that. And like, once they finally identified as a person that just doesn't smoke, that is what allowed them to quit. versus like how you just said, them, yeah, I'm gonna do a 6 months, see what happens. It's like, it makes sense. But I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't hate alcohol. Like I've experienced some good things with family and my dad. And, you know, we have traditions to like have a cup of whiskey on, a glass of whiskey on Christmas time or whatever. It's like there's little things like that I will, you know, do. But it's like, it's the random, like, this, I know going into this, like, it's not, I shouldn't be drinking moments that are like, okay, it's time to cut this out. And it's funny, you actually remind me of my cousin. He's a creator, or he's like, he's an influencer. Yeah.
And like it came with some thought.
Yeah, so he's an influencer. He went on the Bachelorette show.
Oh, he did.
So he was one of like the handful of dudes that was like going for.
Good looking.
He's a big dude, an athlete, played pro baseball in the minor leagues, and then he went back to college and finished school and did basketball at Point Loma, Nazarene. But anyways, he's just like gym owner, health and fitness, sober guy his whole life, never touched weed or alcohol or drugs ever. He's waiting till marriage. He's very Catholic, very religious person, and I respect him for it. And yeah, you guys are, and he's a guy that you would never expect to be like.
You know what I find interesting in what you just said? Waiting for marriage and going on the Bachelorette. Those almost seem like contradicting.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he went on it with good intentions, with optimism.
I mean, I'd go on it if I got the opportunity.
Yeah, and he did well. He got to like, you know, 4th or 5th, I think.
That's pretty good.
In the, what's the word? In the picking.
Yeah.
In the order. But like, he's all about finding like his wife. I mean,
is he in San Diego?
Yeah, he's in Point Loma.
Well, I might need to talk to that guy.
You should definitely interview him. He's his name is Mike Planeta.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I'll definitely. I would love to sit down and talk to him. Bachelor sounds like I have a friend who's like one step away from being on The Bachelor right now, but he's not anything like what you just described.
Yeah.
Very entrepreneurial though.
Yeah. It's a good. I mean, when you look at it from a business perspective, being on that show, like, if you sell yourself to the people, like, you're building.
Yeah, it's a huge one of the best personal brand boosts you can have. I would say the real only downfall is that you don't have a complete like say over how they'll portray you. So you could just get a negative portrayal and just have it. But I'm sure you can, after the show, if you navigate yourself correctly, you can redeem it. You've balanced an entrepreneurial life. You've made a living after quitting your 9-to-5. I know this is something you talk about a lot. What advice do you have what advice do you have specifically for people who want to quit their 9-to-5 job?
First off, I would say to have a pretty good plan, like, of what you're gonna do. Obviously, like, I wouldn't just like quit and then just like dive into like, I'm gonna pursue podcasting and maybe it'll, you know, like, obviously, like, set yourself up to where you can be making money somehow, whether that's like another job or whatever, bussing tables for a week or 2 or a month to kind of get by. So like, have a strong plan. Like, don't just like quit your job and then fucking like, go into it. Like, for me, basically what happened with me is I worked for that agency for 3 years and I was getting crushed and I was over the clients, didn't really care about them, and I was like fed up with it. I didn't feel like I was, you know, valued enough. I didn't feel like I was making enough as I was worth. Dealt with a bunch of BS that I didn't want to deal with. And then I got the opportunity, which is ironic, from my boss at the time. His friend needed someone to come out and shoot him driving his race car, like, for his racing and his upcoming season. So we connected. My boss at my old agency connected me to this guy, and we did the thing. We did a couple months. I was working both jobs. He had me on retainer, essentially. So I was making pretty good money, and I worked there for like, I think 2 months. We'd do a weekend every month, and we'd go and I'd shoot for like 3 or 4 days with him and edit throughout the month, and YouTube video, Instagram reels, you know the deal. And I would say, like, go into it with a plan, because if I didn't have that money coming in, I would have been pretty stressed. But like also, there's been months in the last year. It's been about a year since I left, or since I put in my 2 weeks, I guess. There's been months where it's like, bro, I made no money. Like no money came in. Like I'm laying in bed every night. Like how am I gonna pay my rent? How am I gonna pay my car bill? Whatever. How am I gonna grow my following? Like, dude, there's just so much self-doubt and so much like anxiety and like stress. For me personally, it's like the stress is what kills me. I'll get stressed and I'll overthink, and I'm really trying to get into a mindset of like, these thoughts aren't real, like at all. Overthinking isn't real if you don't allow it to be real. So I guess the biggest advice, if I could summarize that, would be like, have a good plan before you quit. Like, don't burn any bridges, obviously. Like, I could have been more communicative to my old boss before leaving. It's kind of like 0 to 100. Was like, yo, I'm gonna leave this job. And like, you got to go all in. There's no half-assing it. You got to go full ass into it, and just like, and focus and believe in yourself as much as you possibly can, because no one else is going to. Even if you're gonna have your mother, your father, maybe some of your good friends, but like majority of people are gonna be like talking behind your back and not gonna have that much support, even though it may come off that way. So like, you just gotta be your number one fan. Just push until the wheels fall off.
There's a number of things I that sparked in my head. I guess I'll say this. I was reading this book called Backable. In the book Backable by Sunil Gupta, the whole concept of the book is how do you get people to back your ideas. So if I want to quit college, how do I get my parents to think quitting college is a good decision? How do I get people to think that I will have a successful podcast? And he goes through some of the most famous speeches. Steve Jobs announcing the iPhone. He goes through the number one most talked TED Talk, most watched TED Talk. And if you look at these speeches, he says, put your book down, go watch these speeches. Tell me if they're good speakers. Steve Jobs, when he's announcing the iPhones, says filler words like 85 times. He's not that confident. In the number one most watched TED Talk, same thing, not that great of a speaker, but these legendary speeches that changed history. And you ask yourself, why? And he said, if you were to ask someone what makes you a good speaker or what makes people believe in you, they would say 1, confidence, and 2, charisma. Like how confident are you and how charismatic are you? And he says those things help, but what it really is conviction. And Steve Jobs wasn't a great speaker, but he knew that the iPhone would change the world. Yeah. And his belief in his product shined through so much that we consider that speech one of the greatest speeches of all time. Same with the TED Talk. And it's like, conviction is a really hard thing to measure, because you can point out things about confidence. Like if I was sitting like this, I would be like, hey, that guy's not confident, because confident people open up. They talk louder. They talk a bit faster. There's things you can pinpoint about confidence. There's things you can pinpoint about charisma. It's very hard to pinpoint things about conviction. The only way is how much I believe in something. You're setting the tone for how much someone else will believe in it. Yeah. And so that's something I'm big on, is like having conviction. But I did want to ask you, was like kind of jumping back to what you were saying. Do you think since quitting your 9 to 5 that you've been overall happier?
Had a feeling that was coming. Yeah, I think the level of stress, I'll answer that question at the very end of this, but I think the level of stress that I've taken in has been significantly higher. Yeah. I think the level of self-doubt has gone up a handful. When it comes to the work that I'm doing, I'm obviously a lot more passionate about it, right? Like I'm building my personal brand, I'm building my content my way. There's no one like above me telling me like, this is how you should do it, or this is like who you should target, or this is how you should target them. It's like, this is all for me. And that's like, for like 3 years, dude, I was like just so tired of doing stuff for everyone else. And like, even when I was doing the videography with this driver, I was like, I'm there shooting this. and he's behind the camera, and I was the whole time I'm just thinking to myself like, I want to be the person in front of the camera, not behind it. Even though I can maneuver a camera, pretty above average, I would say, to the common people. It's like, I still want to be in front of it. Like, I want to be that figure.
Why?
I just feel like it's been, I don't know. It's just a natural feeling. It's just something that I've always been scared to do. I've always been very shy in public speaking, very self-conscious. I was always a very small kid growing up, so I had a little bit of a effect on those years. But I think when I first started doing the talking head stuff, it was like, this was a big goal of mine to get better at speaking in public, or speaking, to someone I've never met before. Yeah. It's like, these are things that I used to be hesitant to do because I was like self-conscious and I wasn't that confident. And I knew that if I just kept doing this and kept practicing it, like, I had to get better. But since leaving the 9-to-5 and since doing this for a whole year, it's like, yes, it's been stressful. And happiness levels, I would say, I think I am happier because it's like I'm putting in maybe more work and more effort, and there's more stress coming out of this, but it's all for me. And that's why I'm happy. I'm doing something for me. Let's go. It's camera stop or what? Very good.
Sorry,
You want to check it?
Oh, the camera's good. I'm just worried that the sun's gonna beam down on it. I'm gonna see if I can like
a little pause. What camera is that?
Sony ZV-10. Well, let me make.
Is that new? Is that a newer one?
It's not, but it's like a vlogger camera, so it's not like big in the. If you're into shooting it's great.
I want one of those. Yeah, I want one of those just to carry it around like this, film stuff.
The best part about it, in my opinion, is the natural colors of that camera are incredible, and I hate color grading.
Really? I was gonna ask you that.
I will say though, I do hate color grading, but I started using Davinci Resolve 5 years ago. I know I used Premiere Pro the first year I was on YouTube, and then I started getting recommended why I switched to Davinci Resolve after 10 years, and I switched to Davinci Resolve. But at the time, it wasn't like, for some reason, it was big in my YouTube feed, but no one else was switching. And now, literally, everyone's switching to DaVinci, so I am like ahead of the curve there. But I don't use it at all for color grading.
I just dropped a free tutorial on color grading cinematic footage.
In DaVinci?
In DaVinci, yeah.
I honestly will have to watch it.
Yeah, no, go for it. It's free. It's free, and that's where I'm like kind of at right now with the business. I'm realizing like I can make money doing commercials and doing films, and I enjoy doing those things, especially when it's like something I resonate with, like a lifestyle brand or like the dream would be to like shoot a Porsche commercial. That'd be fucking incredible. But it's like I also I'm realizing like in order to make money on social media, like you have to try to make money on social media. So I'm trying to create small products like the Notion template and the color grading tutorial, and create a few of those different things, and just like provide as much value as I can to my audience, to my people who are fans and following and want to be there. And then try to, turn those customers or those followers into fans, and obviously into clients eventually. I mean, this is all to make. Both of us aren't here to make, to like do this for fun, even though it's great. But it's like, of course, there has to be some way to live off of.
Monetize.
Exactly.
I mean, that's something I really struggle with because, I usually lead the podcast by saying my why behind the podcast. I didn't do that today.
Say it again. What do you do?
I usually start off the podcast with my why behind the podcast. 95%.
Do it now. You can cut it in the front.
No, I'm not going to cut it, but I will say it now.
Okay.
Which is, most people measure success by wealth metrics, which are money, possessions, achievements, or status.
Yeah.
The goal of my podcast is to change the way people measure success to relationships and memories. When I was in college, I don't want to say I was just like you, but I was very much like you with the obsession with work. I thought work was the solution to everything. Like, big fan of Think and Grow Rich, all those podcasts. And there's a part in Think and Grow Rich where it says you have to know what you want to sacrifice. You have to have a timeline. I know in one of your videos you said I think you literally said that you have a date for when you think you're gonna achieve stuff.
I've got it written all on a whiteboard in my room.
Okay, so I don't know how you'll take this, but I used to go into my mirror every single night and be like, I will have 1 million subscribers by this day on this time, and I will give up this, this, and this every single day for probably like 2 to 3 years straight. And then a lot of things happened that changed my opinion, which is, I'll say from the most broad perspective, what happened is that I realized that by obsessing so much over a future goal, so in this case, like, I'm going to have 1 million subscribers, I'm going to give up this, this, and this, I begin to idolize that goal. My whole life is surrounded by that goal, which is what these entrepreneurial people encourage you to do. If you want it, you got to want it bad. But when you begin to idolize a goal, then you begin to say, even if you're not telling yourself, I'll be happy when I get the goal, you say, oh, enjoy the journey. If you dedicate your whole life to achieving something, in some subconscious form of your mind, you think that you will be happier when you get there, which you might.
Yeah.
Who knows? But as we both know, there's so many rich people, so many famous people say this doesn't make you happy.
Yeah.
But then also to go on top of that, like, let's say like you versus Alex Hormozi, or me versus, I think I'll be a better comparison. Me versus Alex Hormozi. Who's happier? I don't truly know, because I'm not Alex Hormozi. He doesn't seem to be unhappy in any sense. But statistically, it's more likely that I'm happier, because they have proven that you're happier chasing a goal than you are achieving a goal.
Yeah.
The same thing. You're happier almost winning than you are winning. And he's achieved so many goals that I know, like, I mean, from his content, I'm sure he's setting new goals and he has new places to go. But part of the reason fame and money make people unhappy is because a lot of the things that they thought would make them happy, they have it and it didn't. And 2, they have less goals to chase. And so it's like, I have right now unlimited goals to chase.
Yeah.
So in a sense, so that was like a one really big realization. But the second big realization came down to relationships, and not like in the sense of like going to the bar with my friend. I have no desire to go to the bar with my friends because it's just not appealing to me.
Yeah.
But like, I was dating a girl, and I remember every time I was with her, I'd be like, I have to go work on YouTube. I have to cut this hangout short. I have to do this.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, if I died, how would this girl remember me? And I literally was like, she would remember me as like constantly choosing work over her. And it's like, even if I had everything I ever wanted, would that be what I want people to memorize me as? And I was like, no, I wouldn't want to be remembered that way. And then what I realized is that this is really common. This is not just me, bro.
Yeah.
This is every entrepreneur, every creator, every David Goggins, Alex Hormozi, work. And I'm like, dude, all these people are idolizing work and they're lacking in the relationships. But then it goes back to what you're talking about, where it's like, are you just getting wasted on the week? So I don't know. Just give your thoughts on what I just said.
No, I definitely agree with that and where you're going with that. That's another thing too. It's like, I've been trying to, in learning how to balance, like throughout this last few years, learning how to balance friends and relationships and family and then the purpose, the mission to build. And I think a big turning point for me was like going back and really like looking at what it is that I really want. Like, what is the real like driver? What is my real purpose to like be putting in this amount of work and to really want to achieve these bigger goals? And it came down to me just like writing for a while about it. And I just came out with like, the only thing I kept coming back to was, I need to have a family one day.
Yeah.
And I want to have kids.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to be around as much as possible when they're going to their soccer games or when they're going to the whatever, the party, birthday party, whatever it is. Like, and that, it's crazy. And I've never told anyone this, but it kind of stems back to me as a kid. Yeah. My dad, legendary dude, like entrepreneur, corporate job, made a good amount of money doing this job.
Entrepreneur or corporate? He
was, he wasn't an entrepreneur. He's corporate his whole life. Yeah. But very entrepreneurial mindset. Yeah. And he worked his ass off. He worked his tail off. Like, he's the reason that I work hard today. And he went from 22 to 55, retired, provided a beautiful life for his family and life for my family and the people around us. And I see him now, and he's retired, and he's just like so like doesn't know how to relax. He's still in that work mode.
Yeah.
And then when I think back to when I was a kid, and the reason I probably, want to be able to spend time with my kids when I'm like 28, 30, 34, 40, is because he was always working. Like we'd be at like lacrosse tournaments, and he'd be like in the car, like on his computer, like tapped into like a mobile hotspot. Just like, I gotta respond to a few emails, so I gotta write this, whatever. It's like, dude, like I want to be very involved in those little things, because I think that is like a big part of what I see happiness to be in that time of my life. Like being able to groom and grow with my partner, and like take my kids and like experience them, do their thing. And then like, of course, like whether you like material items or not, I personally like Porsche 911s. I like expensive watches. I like dope stuff like that. And it's like, the idea of me to even have the opportunity to own a Porsche 911 and to be driving my two, hopefully boy and girl in the back seat to their soccer game is like,
wow.
And then the road bike rack on the top of that thing, like, dude, and the wife in the front, like,
that's real.
Fuck, dude, that's a dream. That is a dream.
That's real.
Like, do you agree with that? Like, doesn't that sound ideal?
I not only do I agree with the dream, but I very much relate to your dad. It was a very, very similar story with my dad. My dad's an extremely hard worker. To this day, sometimes my dad works till 10 p.m. sometimes. And he works till 9 to 5. So he works 9 to 5 and then like on his own works till 10 p.m. And I'm super grateful for that, because, I mean, we watch our parents. We learn from our parents whether we like it or not. And so I've been able to be a hard worker because of my dad. And I'm very grateful, because hard work leads to a lot of good things. But here's where I'll challenge you on that. Is that a lot of people who have that entrepreneurial drive, they'll say something similar to what you just said, and they'll be like, I'm working so hard now so that I can have more time later. Like if I start my own business, then by the time I have a family, I can automate it a little bit. I can step out of it a little bit, and I can run my family. The issue with that mindset is not that it's not possible. It's that we're habitual creatures. If you train yourself to push until the wheels fall off every single day, and then you hit your milestones for your dream reality. So let's say like you make $1 million a year, you have the Porsche 911, you have the wife and the kids, and you could live exactly the reality you just said. The chances are you're not going to do it. Why? Because you've trained yourself that any time spent not working is unproductive, and you feel guilty for it. And now, just because you have a family and kids, you're not all of a sudden going to be like, I value relationship time. You're going to be with those people, and you're going to feel guilty because you've trained yourself to be that way your entire life.
That is a good way to think about that.
That is, I've experienced it already, like with my girlfriend, and I've experienced it with my friends. And there's a difference between saying like, oh, I don't want to go out to the bar with these people because I just know that doesn't benefit my life. And there's a difference between like idolizing work and training yourself to literally like feeling guilty when you're not working, and that's what I've done, and that's why I want to help other people, because I think it's a common problem.
I think that's like the golden. You want to check that? Do you think it's too low or what?
Yeah, let me check that. Sorry about it.
That was good.
I mean, it's like not bad at all, but I wonder if there's a way to get it to like stop. Oh, my chip.
Yeah, right there's perfect.
There. Okay. Yeah, that was kind of bothering me when it was wild and looked there.
Yeah. I think that's like the golden thing that like a guy like you've obviously started to like figure it out, and it's been a process for me to figure out. And it's like I have a roommate of mine, his name's Nico, and he's like the opposite of me. Like he's very live in the moment, and like nothing is right, nothing is wrong, and like who is to say that working this much and doing all this is gonna make you happy or whatever. Like he's kind of similar to you in a way when he looks at these certain situations. And then I have a friend, a mentor of mine, who's like very hard, even more, I guess, of my energy. And he mentors me in that sense. And he's kind of built it already though. Like he has his girlfriend. He's young. He's my age. His girlfriend's 23, and you know he's dialed it in. Like he's started his business, and it's now successful after 5-6 years of him eating shit, like just trying to figure it out. And now he's at a point now where it's like doing pretty well, and he's got his dad, and they work on their old vintage cars together, and he's got his girlfriend who he cares deeply about. He he's where he wants to be in San Diego. He's got his little fishing boat that he'll take out and like try to he's a big advocate of enjoying and finding things that you love to do, because they create long-term dopamine, long-term happiness. And it's like the idea of him going out to the bar on a Friday, it just doesn't make sense, because he knows that it's not going to bring him any sort of fulfillment in his own head. But like if he's going to go out and spend 2 hours fishing for spotted bass out in the Coronado Bay, and like reel a few in and crack some jokes with some of his good friends, like that's the type of fulfillment and like, you know, happiness that he wants to create on the weekends, I guess. So it's like, yeah, I think that's very, I hear you. I definitely hear you with that, because I've been there myself, and I did it in college. It was kind of the same thing. Looking back, like I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. And it was because I was so focused on like the school and getting the grades, and then the this and then that, and then I never really gave her the time that she deserved, and that fizzled. And it's the same thing up to now, to this point. It's like, and that's where I'm at. It's like, okay, my friend's in town, he's visiting for the weekend. I'll probably see him again in a few months, but like, hits me up, let's like come hang out, let's grab a beer, whatever. Yeah. And then, okay, driving there, I'm like, yeah, I'm already in Coronado, I'm gonna drive up to Carlsbad regardless, like I'll stop by and say what up. And then it turns into like, you know, 2 beers. If I'm not driving, it turns into maybe 4. And it's just like, the guilt is going through my head of like, I shouldn't do this because I probably should get up early and get my shit done on Saturday morning. And then there's the other side where it's like, I'm also 25 and like, what's more important, doing an hour extra of work in the morning or spending time with a guy that I don't get to see that often? Like, and that's the big thing right now that I'm trying to learn how to navigate and balance.
The mentality is a lose-lose, because if you choose to do the work, you feel bad that you didn't spend the time with your friend. And if you choose to spend the time with your friend, you feel bad that you didn't do the work.
Yeah.
That's real. And I appreciate you for sharing it. It's very similar to my life. I mean, I think one thing that really helps me out, I just got to say this because it's true, but is before I leaned more into God and religion, I felt so in charge of my future that based on how hard I work now will directly determine the outcome of my future, and my future will determine my happiness. Which I think the mistake in there was that you're putting happiness in the future. But now it's like, dude, I still work really hard. I can't remember the last Friday I didn't work or Saturday that I didn't work. I mean, this is work right now. This is my job.
100%.
But I really enjoy this.
Yeah.
I really... Even as like compared to hanging out with someone else, I'm probably push myself to have a deeper, more meaningful, more fulfilling conversation here in my work, because it will make a better product.
Yeah.
So it's like my work is truly what I love to do a lot of the time. Of course, I don't love 100% of the aspects, but where was I going with this? I just totally lost my train of thought. Dude, I just lost it.
You're good, dude. You're saying,
oh yeah, okay. So like, I used to feel so in charge of my future, and like, I do work really hard. But the piece, it's like if someone asked me, and I guess I kind of wanted to ask you, which is like you say you got to believe in yourself, and I wanted to be like, okay, do you believe in yourself? And like, do you really believe in yourself? When you record those videos, do you feel like an imposter?
I mean, until I see the results that I'm looking for, it'll always be that little bit of imposter syndrome in the back of your head. But like, I think that what you're about to jam me with something here.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, I know where I started, and I know that I made some content mistakes in the beginning stages, like of delivery and of like the messages maybe should have been said in a different tone or like different way.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm man enough to own up to and to realize like, okay, maybe that should have been said differently, or maybe that wasn't something I should have spoken on quite yet in my career. But it's like, it's all a learning process for me, and like it's all been a goal, and the big goal of getting better at speaking, and now the biggest goal of helping the kid that I used to be. And yeah, I can confidently say that I do believe myself, and I think that there will always be self-doubt, like no matter what. There'll always be a little bit of it, and it's just about navigating how to remove those thoughts for me. Like that's where I'm at. It's like, okay, even when I get a little bit self-conscious or a little bit like, maybe this didn't come out right, or maybe I sound like an idiot, maybe like X, Y, and Z isn't gonna resonate with this. It's like, okay, F them, remove that thought and just get it out and move on to the next.
Well, I have a whole point that I wanted to make, like with God, but I will jump in here with imposter syndrome is really interesting because we go to those wealth metrics: money, possessions, achievements, and status.
Yeah.
I don't struggle with considering myself a podcaster or YouTuber. Many people in my position do struggle. Why? Because they measure success by, I'll say in this case, like likes, views, money.
Yeah.
Because they're not getting a certain amount of views, they don't feel worthy to call themselves a YouTuber. I definitely fall into the category of not enough views to call yourself a YouTuber, if that exists. But the reason I don't struggle with that is because I don't measure success by views, and I've been doing YouTube for 5 years. I posted over 600 videos. So for me to not call myself a YouTuber would just be showcasing the fact that I measure success by views. Because I've done this, Alex Hormozy has a quote that I really like. You don't become confident by shouting affirmations in the mirror. You have become confident by having a stack of evidence that you are who you say you are.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've filmed 600 videos, so I believe that I'm this person.
Yeah.
But then it goes on to, you can have the opposite where someone might post their first TikTok tomorrow, get 10 million views, and they're going to get 10 million views, and all the rest of their content for a little bit is going to get views, but they're going to feel like an imposter because even though they have so many views, they know they didn't like, I'm not this person.
Yeah.
So it's like, you can have it all and be an imposter because you haven't put in the work, or you can put in the work and be an imposter because you measure success by views. And so it's like, there's just a lot of interesting dilemmas with the way you think about yourself. But then I was going to go on to like back to the working hard and the God point, which is I work hard and I know that like your habits and the way you live do affect your future, but ultimately it's like I feel so surrendered to God that that like stress, I don't have that stress because I just feel that and I pray this every day. I pray like God, have your way. So if I want this podcast to work out, and that's what it's been seeming like that is going well in my life. I've gotten bigger guests. It's grown over time. I feel blessed. I think that I'm a good speaker. It's seeming to go that way. But if God wanted to take this podcast away and put me in a grocery store, so be it. And that has given me the greatest peace of mind, because it's just like feeling like I'm not the master of my future. And I really believe that I'm not the master of my future. I think I feel so blessed to be doing this, and I love doing it, but if God wanted me to do something else, I like to imagine that I would accept whatever he has for me. On the flip side of that, though, I also want to say that gives me extreme confidence that other people don't have. Like I've told people before, they get shocked when I say this. I wouldn't be surprised if in my career I film a podcast in space. I also wouldn't be surprised in my career if I film a podcast with Kim Jong-un. And people go, how could you possibly think those things are possible? And I go, bro, if God made the heavens and the earth and the people, if he wanted to use me to sit down with Kim Jong-un, that would be like the least impressive thing he could do. like as far as everything he's created and done. So it's like, I just like don't even, I know that God is capable of wilder things beyond my wildest dreams and beliefs and just crazy things that played out in my life, that it's like, I don't even care to be the master of my future. I'm going to work hard because I believe that's what you should do.
Yeah.
But I don't care to be the master of my future. And I think it also helps in my relationships, because the Bible says over and over again, pretty much just talks over and over again about how money means nothing, achievements mean nothing, but relationships mean everything. And so it's like, let's say I have an opportunity to work really hard, but I find myself in a conversation with some homeless dude about God. I'd rather sit there and talk to that dude for 5 hours than work on it, because now I'm working for God rather than for me. Right. And so that's like changed everything in my life. But yeah, I don't know. I just want to share that.
Yeah, dude, I 100% respect people and their faith and religion, 100%. So I grew up in a Catholic family. My dad is very religious. My dad is gives back to the church. Like, that's like one of his if you define my dad, it's like he retired from a corporate job. He goes to church, he gives back, he volunteers, he does all that, and he plays golf. He's learning it. He's all right at golf.
He's all right at golf.
He gets out there. And yeah, like, that's him. And then my mother, my mom's side of the family, everyone big into God. And then Mike, kid I was telling you about, he and I went and shot a project up in Laguna Beach, because he gets these like brand deals to do like tourism board, whatever. So like tourism boards, yeah. So we went up in Laguna Beach doing this project for them, and he sits down and he goes, "Hey, like, let me ask you something." And I was like, "What's up?" And he goes, "How come you don't go to church on Sunday? Like, how come you're not like, there?" And I was like, "You know what? Like, I don't know. I feel like I'll reconnect with that part of my life as I get older." And he goes, "Well, what if you die tomorrow?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Dude, yeah, that's because like in my head, it's always been like, yeah, when I get older, when I have a family, I want to take my kids to church. Like, I want them to be raised that way. But again, every week I don't.
Yeah.
I haven't found my my reattachment to it. I mean, I used to go when I was a kid, and when I was like up to high school, and then it became like something I didn't really want to do, and it's left me now just like detached from it. I do think I'll reattach or dive back into that, but it's like it's interesting to hear a guy like you speak about that and talk about how it affects your mentality and your mindset and the way that you make decisions, and it's honorable 100%. I'm not able to resonate 100% just because I'm not on your level.
Bro, I mean, well, it just comes to priorities.
Yeah.
For a long time, I prioritized my dreams above God. I think that the narrative that culture has put on God is that it's boring. We look at our current lives and we go, I respect God, I was raised this way, but if I were to really lean into this and stop having sex and stop getting drunk and these things, I feel like my life would get boringer. And I felt the exact same way. I had a really intense situation where the girl I was dating almost died, and it kind of brought me to God. But it was the biggest blessing in the world because I was wrong. Nothing got boringer. All my relationships got better. All my discipline got better. My work got better. My mental health got better. And I always say this, I'm not trying to convince you. Actually, I am trying to convince you to get closer to God. That's always a goal of mine.
Yeah.
But it's people think that God made these rules to be a cosmic tester of who is my most loyal follower. God didn't make the rules to be a cosmic tester. The whole point of, if you're in the Christian faith, is that Jesus died for you while you were a sinner so that you could be saved. So you're not saved by the rules. God made the rules because he loves you, because he designed the human and he knows exactly how you will thrive. And it's funny because as you go through life, they'll start going to the bars and they'll be like, wait, actually, getting blackout drunk doesn't help me. And then you read in the Bible, be sober-minded. And you go, Oh, and I think sex is the hardest one for people. It's so instantly gratifying. It feels so good. It makes you feel closer to someone. But then you realize, bro,
It's horrible.
it makes you attached to someone. If you're not committing to someone for life, why would you want to have that like
Yeah.
attachment? It's the most intimate thing you can do with someone.
Yeah.
And you just, bro, I mean, the best thing I ever did was get back to those priorities.
Principles and more. Yeah.
And you're more than welcome, since you live in Carlsbad, to come to church with me.
Yeah. I might have to. Yeah, on that aspect of like relationships and obviously girls and whatever. Like right now, I feel like I'm at a place where it's like I don't want to necessarily jump into anything with someone yet until I'm like at a point where I feel comfortable enough to like financially and you know provide for. Oh, because like the next girl I date, whether I know it or not, hopefully will be my wife. And like I always get shit for like being that way and being like, I don't want to like, I know that girl, I'm not gonna date her. Like I don't even want to waste the time going to talk to her. Like, and it's just funny because it's like the one night stand is like, you feel horrible after.
You feel horrible.
In my case, I felt horrible a handful of times. And it's like, what's the point? Like, what's the point of this? Like, I don't want to, and I'll get like shit for it. I'll get shit from some of the guys. It's all like in good faith, but it's like, I'll get shit for like not wanting to go and, do all that.
Yeah.
And wanting to just like find a real connection with someone. And I'm just like, dude, it's just what I'm going to do. And your opinion now, it just doesn't really matter to me. Another funny thing I wanted to bring up too about the drinking and like social interaction and stuff. It's like, I used to think like there's obviously that like classic like stigma of like like get loosen up, few beers, few drinks, like talk to girls better or whatever. And I've started to realize this like last like 6 to 8 months that like I'm way more like fun and like happy to be around and more entertaining and more like funny, I guess, when I'm not drunk. Like when I'm like 1 or 2 beers, like that's like where I'm the best. Like I can I can have a good conversation and be normal and not fucking ridiculous. And every single time that I've gotten to a point where I was like, I knew the next day that I was too drunk that night before, nothing good has ever come from it. It's always been like a regretful decision or like, oh, I shouldn't have said that to her, or like, that was a mistake. So it's like, I don't know, dude. I'm just slowly drifting from alcohol.
There's a lot of thoughts. There's a Bible verse, Romans 2:15. It says, they demonstrate that God's law is written on their hearts for their own conscience of thoughts either accuse them or tell them they are doing right. And it's the same thing you said I've experienced and I've heard people talk about. When people have one night stands, they like, it's so funny because it's hyped up. Like it's like, oh, you got hooked up with this chick or whatever. Yeah. Every person I've ever had a real deep personal conversation with told me that they felt in some way it was wrong. They knew. It's written on their hearts. Yeah. Which is funny. But second of all, I have a really good friend, Lucas, a Christian friend of mine, and he said a quote that's one of my favorite quotes ever. And he said, I don't like drinking because it makes me not confident. And it was my favorite quote ever because it's like the opposite of what everyone else says. But the way alcohol works, your brain gets drunk in sections. So everyone says like, I'm only going to drink a couple beers tonight. But your reasonable, logical decision-making brain, part of the brain is the first part that gets drunk. That's why when you get drunk, you drink more beers, and then you slowly lose motor functions. You lose like hand motor functions, and then you lose body motor functions. That's like when girls or guys start falling over, and then your body makes you pass out or black out, because if you go beyond blacking out, you lose organ function. If you lose organ function, you die. But it's funny because so like the idea, I don't know if not it's funny, but the idea of like drinking makes me confident is that you have a part of your brain that's like anxious or nervous because you're not that great at talking to strangers. Yeah. And so you drink that part of the brain to turn off. But everything along with that is you're literally just turning. It's like if I said, hey, you can go play a sport, but you can't use your right arm. And you can't use, you'd be like, oh, why? Like, I needed my right arm. So it's like, when you say I feel better as myself, it makes complete sense because you're literally turning your brain off. The only thing alcohol helps you with is turning off your fear of what others think. But in reality, if you just get over that one fear, there's no reason why you'd ever should be more confident. It's like being more confident playing sports when you're injured. It makes no sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a weird thing. Like, it really is. And yeah, like I said, I'm getting to a stage now where I'm like, this isn't, doing it for me anymore. I'm almost like less, I think that I'm less dope when I'm drunk.
Bro, that's a good, one of the best feelings you can have to feel less cool when you're drunk.
Like there'll be times where like, there's like a couple times last couple years where like, we like threw a party or like whatever. We had a New Year's or like the whatever, Halloween or whatever, like just a random night. Yeah, let's let loose. Let's have a few.
Yeah.
And like hearing one of my friends like talk about like something I was like doing the night before, I was like, bro, like,
you cringe.
It's like, bro, I don't want to be that guy, bro. Like,
I literally can't think of a worse anxiety than talking about something you did when you were drunk. It is the worst anxiety because it's like a version of you did something. The version of you that's not you did something that you don't approve of.
Yeah, and it
feel horrible about it.
Back to your point earlier, it drifts from what you want, from what your identity is. It pulls you away from that completely. Yeah. And then you're just thinking about it for like however long after. Different for everybody, I guess.
Bro, but that's another huge advantage to like, I keep hearing you reference like people have these thoughts or like, the thoughts push me into drinking more, into feeling a certain way. Bro, the best part about being surrounded by people who love God is that they don't. And I don't want to say this because, or I want to put a caveat, is that just because someone says they're Christian or Catholic doesn't mean that they live that way at all.
Yeah.
But people who genuinely follow it.
That's me. Straight up.
And thank you for admitting that.
I'm raised a Catholic kid, and if someone asks me, I'll tell them I'm Catholic. But do I go to church? No.
But those people who really have Jesus in their heart, they will not judge you. Matthew 7:2, for in the same way you judge others, you will be judged with the measure you use. It will be measured to you. They won't judge you. They will push you to hold you accountable. They'll hold you accountable to the way you treat people, to how you work. They're not going to hold you accountable to getting drunk or smashing chicks. Like, and those are really, you're clearly into fitness. You're about to run an Ironman, which we should dive into in a second.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, if you want to see a lot of crosses like this, walk into a gym. Fitness and faith, 2 in 1. Entrepreneurship and faith, like,
even guys like that Andrew Tate and like those dudes, like, yeah, those guys are ridiculous. Like, I mean, some of the things they say, like, kind of, some things it's like, all right, but like, he's always talking about God.
I mean, I'll go out and say publicly, I think Andrew Tate brings a lot more good into the world than he does bad.
I can agree, and obviously it's like people are gonna be all fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but it's like, yeah, I agree,
dude. Well, the thing with Andrew Tate is that he's a brilliant marketer, much like Kanye West.
Yeah.
And part of the reason people love him is because he's hilarious. And part of the reason he's hilarious is because he says what people are thinking, but they're too scared to say. Now, when he says that, like, let's say, for example, I don't want to get in a plane with a female driver. It's like, I don't think he even really believes that, and neither does anyone else believe it. But the underlying thought there is that women are slightly less athletic than men.
Yeah.
And we live in a culture now where it's like unacceptable to say that, even though it's a fact. That's why every sport ever has a male division and a women's division. And so it's like you come into a culture where it's walking on eggshells to say anything along those lines. And Andrew Tate comes out and he says, which is probably not serious. I'm sure Andrew Tate's been in many planes with female pilots that he wasn't even aware of. He says something like that and everyone's like,
yeah.
Because and that's like, and the reason that I don't care to talk about it, even though I'm small, is that, again, you set the standard for your audience. So if I were to walk on eggshells and be like, oh, Tim just brought up Andrew Tate. Let me steer the conversation away from this.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm creating an audience who's never heard me talk about these things. And maybe one day I go, hey, I want to talk about what I want to talk about. And I've built this audience of PG people for 10 years. And then I go, hey, I actually support Andrew Tate. And they go have the rods to cancel me because I built that audience. And that's why I won't push away from controversial topics.
Yeah.
I think God's controversial. Andrew Tate's controversial. Saying that not working hard, prioritizing relationships can even be controversial.
Yeah.
You got to just be you. That's the real not.
That's the ticket. Yeah, that's the ticket. 100%. 100%.
You want to dive into this Ironman and then we'll ask the outro question and wrap up?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Why do you want to do an Ironman?
So...
And maybe describe to them what an Ironman is in case...
So yeah, an Ironman is a 3 sporting event race, essentially.
Yeah.
So it's a swim, a bike, and a run, in that order. So the full Ironman is 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and then a 26 mile run, which is a marathon.
Wow. That's crazy.
So I have the half, that divided by 2, the half marathon, or the half Ironman up in May, in Morro Bay, and then I have the full in November. And in November, it'll be about a year since I started training. So there's actually a video I posted way back on this roof, like sitting right here, explaining why I started training. But it's basically like, I was at a point where I was feeling pretty lost in all this year of leaving my job and self-growth and whatever. And I needed a way to like, just like kind of distract myself. I mean, I played lacrosse my whole life. I love the gym for like been in the gym for like 6 years now. And I was like, all right, it's time for a new challenge. And this is a way for me to disconnect with like reality, to just like remove the thoughts about work or about what's going to happen in my future, even though it's not something to always think about. But yeah, it was like a way for me to take some of the mental pain and just let it go in at one ear and out the other, I guess. And also just, it's just a challenge, and I wanted to push my body to somewhere I've never done before. I also, we keep coming back to drinking, but I was like, I was building this in the beginning of like starting my account and whatever. And, I needed a reason to not drink on Friday night. So I borrowed my roommate's road bike, and I was like, I'm going to try this on Saturday mornings, just like get out there and go for a ride and see how I like it. And if I like it, I'm going to buy a bike. And basically like I did it, and I was like, this is so much fun. I was like filming myself, like talking whatever camera, and it's just alone, just earbuds in, music or a podcast, and just you're free. There's no checking your phone. There's no like swiping. Like you're there, you're focused on one thing. You're in the present, I guess. And snowball to Ironman.
You know what I really like about fitness goals is that with every other kind of goal, I guess I'll say like career entrepreneurial goals, there's not necessarily a correlation. There is a correlation between hours in and output, but it's not like this. Like, for example, I could make 600 videos, which I have, and have less than 1,000 subscribers, which I do. Someone could make 6 videos and have 100,000 subscribers. I've put in way more work than someone who's made 6 videos, but we had different results. With fitness, of course, person to person, different metabolisms. But if you eat right and you have a fitness goal, you will see the results.
Yeah.
There's no way around it.
Yeah.
You will become healthier. If you eat right and you work out, you can gain weight, you can lose weight. It's one of the only goals that everyone has control over where you will see results. And I think that so many entrepreneurs start in fitness because fitness teaches you that if you put the time and effort into something, there will be an outcome. And I don't think anything else teaches that lesson as well as fitness.
100%. It's interesting too. It's like the opposite of what we were just talking about, right? Like the work, like you just said about your YouTube account and you making shit ton of videos and still slowly growing. But in the fitness side, like you directly,
Bro,
that's kind of nuts. I never really thought about it.
I will run. If you stay to what you've planned out, you will run an Ironman in 1 year.
Yeah.
And
100%.
Nothing will, like, of course you can get an injury or whatever, but that's what I love about fitness, is that like perfectly correlation in just to be, it's like, even this is gonna sound so like, it's gonna sound cringe, but at the end of all my workouts, I like take my shirt off and I go into the gym and I look at myself, and I'm not like someone who posts like a lot of shirtless pics or anything, but I look at myself for like my own.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what I worked for. Here's my body, and I'm happy to look at it, and it freaking pumps me up to get in the gym the next day. And
Yeah.
I try not to like dwell on it, because I don't want to have that pride of like, I'm the man, but like,
Yeah, but of course.
I love that like real results. It's like hard to see those results, and that's where like in the entrepreneur side, you gotta train yourself to see the results in other ways from the wealth metrics. So it's like, for me, bro, my relationships, dude, and even hearing you talk has been like a blessing. I'm like, dang, like I can hear how your friends influence you. My friends do not influence me the same way. They influence me become closer to God, to travel the world, to do these entrepreneurship things. And I'm like, dude, maybe that blessing is way bigger than the subscribers.
Like, yeah, dude, I think that you are very much in a good spot with this.
I appreciate that.
And the fact that like you're 22, when I look back to when I was your age, like I was still working the 9 to 5. I still wanted to go out and do all this bullshit. But it's like, it's cool to see someone with your drive and like, and your balls even to like come up and interview a guy like me or like whoever else you've interviewed or sat down and talked with. It's cool to see. And if I could give myself advice from 25 to 22 or 20, it would be like to really hone in on something that you love. And obviously you found it, and to develop that thing. And even when you don't want to show up, just keep showing up every day, because like eventually stuff will start to compound and build. And yeah, if I could go back 3 years with the knowledge I had or I have now, and I could go back and tell that kid, it would be like, just like lock in and do that thing, and don't give up, and stick to it. Stick to one thing. That was my problem, bro. Like, even since I was like a little kid, like I would always want to do something. I was that kid that would buy the toy or like buy the skateboard or like the scooter, and then like use it for 2 months, and then like, okay, I want to do this now. Always pivoting. And that kind of trailed into my adulthood. And now I'm finally realizing like getting good at one or two things and like really focusing on those two things are going to get me a lot farther than trying to get good at 5 different things. And it was like, I had a conversation with my mentor when I was trying to figure out like how to kind of navigate this process with where I'm at. It's obviously I can have a proof of concept with filmmaking and with like, you know, content creation in general, and I could sell that. So it's like, do I build a production agency and like put all my effort towards that, or do I put all my effort into my personal brand and scaling my channels on YouTube or Instagram? And I had to make that decision, and it was like just kind of weighing the factors in 10 years from now, whether it's like, okay, do the production agency side, I'm always going to be dealing with clients, maybe I get to shoot some cool projects, but it's like I'll have to manage a team, I'll have all these people, more nagging, more problems, or not, who knows? Or if I go the personal brand side, I'll stay away from clients, and maybe I'll have, you know, fans or a community that I influence or that I, you know, monetize products through. And maybe I'll have to go and vlog in order to, you know, do YouTube when I'm like 30 or 35. But I'm realizing now that brings me, like being here in front of my camera and here with your camera, it's like, this brings me more happiness than to be like, gotta show up to LA, we gotta shoot, and you know, oh, this guy didn't bring the fucking lighting set up, so now we gotta do this. And it's like, all those problems I don't want to deal with. I'd rather like be able to sit down and do things like this, or to shoot talking head from my little office, because that's where my whole business is ran through. Like that is the pipe dream. If I could sit down there in my studio, wherever it is, in the next 2 or 3 years, and run my entire business through there, so that I can go and I bring my camera to Costa Rica or to Bali or wherever and like shoot only what I want to shoot. That is where I want to take the filmmaking side of my content. Because it's like I've loved working with the clients that I've worked with, but it's like the thing that brings me happiness with this stuff is like shooting stuff that I want to shoot. Or it's like, if I'm going to go to Bali, I want to document me and my friends having a great time, or like me and my wife potentially, or whatever. It's not like I don't want to have to go to Bali, but you have to bring your camera and these 3 products, and you have to shoot them while you're there so you can get paid to be there, or so your trip is comped. Like that's one way to take it, like how influencers and like travel filmmakers, influencers do it, which is cool. Respect to them. But personally, I want to just be able to enjoy those experiences like naturally, like not have to like, battery's gonna die. Let's go. I gotta run back to the car and get the whatever, and then run into the back to like the waterfall or whatever. I don't know. It's like,
Yeah, it's interesting.
I guess I steered off there, but back to the point, it was like making a decision to focus on one thing and to give it that your all. And I've realized that that's building my personal brand, and then using the filmmaking to fund it for the time being until I grow and monetize.
Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts about that. Alex Hormozy, he has a quote that says, the ignorance to think you're best at 4 different things will be better than someone else's best at one thing. How ignorant that thought is. That's a great quote. And I'm going to push back on it because what you're describing, like how you would get the toy, use it for 3 months, then move on, it's called shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
I severely struggle with shiny object syndrome. I started YouTube in May of 2019. Since starting YouTube, there was a point when I quit YouTube and did music. There was a point when I quit music and did acting. There was a point when I quit acting and did stand-up comedy. And now I'm currently on podcasting. And I used to feel so bad about it. Shiny object syndrome. I would tell myself, if I never did anything except YouTube, I would be successful by now. But then again, soul wealth. How am I defining success? I'm defining it by money and views. I'd be so successful as in my YouTube channel would be bigger. That's what I mean. And that is probably true. Like Alex Hormozy said, the ignorance to think you're best at 4 different things is better than someone else's best. But here's where I push back on that is I've heard so many entrepreneurs on podcasts. I'm like a hyper consumer of successful people. And I've heard so many entrepreneurs. I've heard stories in the Bible where people get to their success and then they say, I wish I wasn't in such a rush. Why do they wish they were in such a rush? They wish they had tried more things when they were younger. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you have an agency and your agency blows up and you're making 50 grand a month. Well, now you have employees to pay for. Let's say you got married, you have kids, a family. Let's say you have an agency, you're making a ton of money, you have employee, kids, a family. You can't just casually try stand-up comedy, because if you go casually try that, then you're putting your family at jeopardy, you're putting your employees in jeopardy. So now you don't have the freedom to try everything you want to. And shiny object syndrome, while I do believe it holds you back from success in one thing, at our age, this is the only age where you truly get to try everything and see what you really love. And I think that people will realize something. They'll realize, okay, I don't want to be in a 9-to-5, so I have to do YouTube. And they'll convince themselves they love YouTube, but if they never try anything else, they don't actually know that.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I convinced myself I love YouTube. Bro, it was so hard for me to start the podcast because I was in my head about the shiny object syndrome. Is this another detour from YouTube? Is this another... Dude, this work gives me so much more energy.
Well, this is also YouTube too, right?
Yeah, but then it's like if I didn't try everything, I wouldn't be so convicted in what I was doing. And it's also like the luxury of being able to try everything. When you're so successful, you can't just...
Can't really...
And so that's like, I mean, I think both viewpoints are true.
Yeah, I actually wrote... I can't remember if I filmed this yet or not, but I talked about this in a video I'm probably going to post soon. But it was basically like, when you're young, like people will tell you to like try a bunch of different new things because like you got to figure out what you don't like, right?
Yeah.
And that was something that I did and that I agree with. But I also agree, like once you've kind of find a few things that you do like, to then say fuck everything else and focus on what you know you're gonna want to be doing. Like for you, like it seems like you've had your different pathways of things you've tried, and now you've landed here and you're realizing it's making you very happy to do this, and like these conversations are like driving you to do the next. And like still do whatever else makes you happy, but like I feel like you're at a point now where this is what you're building.
I do feel like that. I guess I'll ask you my outro question now, which is, well, actually, before I ask you my outro question, I want to make sure I get in the habit today. Is there anything that you wanted to say that you didn't get the opportunity to say, or any topics you would like to discuss?
It's
okay to say no. I want to throw that out.
No, I would just say if you're going to start on social media, if you like want to put yourself out there or like improve at something, for me it was talking, and then now helping that kid. Like, you just gotta do it and then try to get better at it every day, and like not really care what other people think, and just do it for you. I think that's like the only thing, is do it for you and just try to be as authentic as humanly possible. And I think that's what will help both of us take the next step into our monetization and personal brand builds.
Authenticity is huge.
And that's something I struggled with in the beginning. And it wasn't even that I was trying to be inauthentic. I think I was just coming off that way because I was speaking on subjects in a place that I felt like I was worthy of speaking from.
Yeah.
And then looking back 9-8 months ago, it's like, okay, maybe I wasn't, you know, like Hormozy always says, like, the experience is what builds confidence. And it's like, he talked about, and one of his things saying, like, he didn't talk about gym content or building a gym business until like he had like 8 gyms, because he didn't feel like he was like right to talk about it yet. So that was something that I reflected on in my case, where maybe some of my stuff may have came out unauthentic at times back when I was trying to figure out like how I wanted to navigate this. And now that I'm looking back on it, it's like, I can't speak on those subjects if I'm not a fucking master, if I haven't done it 100,000 times. Like, I can only share my experience and how I'm dealing with it in the present. So that's kind of where I've had to like gut check and like realize, got to pivot this a little bit. So,
well, you also had to post those things to come to that realization.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's good. I definitely have made the same mistakes. Or it's like just even being a guru for the purpose of being a guru, where it's like, I want to help people live a better life, but it's like, do I even live a better life?
Yeah.
And I think that imposter syndrome does, like, as we talked about, it does come from not having achievements, but it also comes from
identity.
Yeah, from not being
that person. Yeah.
Why are you giving advice in something you don't truly believe you have value to give? And it is hard though, because like, fake it till you make it. You kind of got. Yeah, there's a balance between
everything. It's hard to navigate.
Yeah, it's hard to navigate, and I think you could even tie that into the conviction versus confidence. That you can be confident all you want, but if you're not convicted in who you are.
And I think to just tie that last part back into the beginning of the conversation when we talked about the shotgun spraying, it was like, that's kind of what I meant. It was really, I didn't really have a clear understanding of who I was trying to speak to and like why I was trying to speak to that person. And that's why I felt like my content was just shotgun sprayed to like, try this and do that, and this is how you can fix this. And it was like, who am I talking to right now? Like, who am I trying to help? Like, well, how am I providing value to anyone? I'm just saying a bunch of bullshit. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe this stuff made sense to me or something that I learned, but it's like, it's not targeted enough to the person, the ideal target person that I'm trying to speak to. And then once I sat down and had a rough week of identifying that person and like who it is, and I'll send you my little like Notion thing so you can see it. Yeah, it's like 2 of my personas. One of them's like 2021, and it's basically me at 20. I just wrote for like 2 pages of like just like about him, why, what he struggles with, what he fears. And then I did another one, a hypothetical woman who's like 28, worked 9 to 5, like doesn't want to, like, she did well in high school, like studied abroad, came back, her parents like never worried about her. She's just been working her job. She made a little bit more money, and she's at a place now where she feels like she should be accomplishing more, but she feels tied up at her 9 to 5. Like, how can I solve that problem for that person?
I'm curious. I want to dive into this a little bit. So I know the 21-year-old is essentially you. What value are you to add to him, given his fears and worries?
The only thing, I guess the value I can add to him is just the experiences that I've had and how I've dealt with those.
But think about it because
As like a more,
the experience that I have is a great answer for you and your literal younger self, but
Yeah.
it's not a great answer for the person you're trying to make content for.
yeah.
Because what does that mean?
I would say like,
Look, what fears, or I don't know if fears is the angle, what problems does whoever you're targeting your content have, and how are you going to help them?
yeah, I would say one of those biggest problems being like you asked, not being able to leave the 9 to 5, like
Yeah, okay.
figuring out how to navigate that process. 2, I think a big problem that I could solve is like learning how to build a personal brand, learning how to, create your systems and processes, learning how to get on there and create a business out of essentially what we're both building now. And then I think a lot of it is like mentality too, like mentality, mindset shift, like how to navigate certain situations, whether it's stress or anxiety or problems with whatever. I also can tap into a lot of camera gear and a lot of like filmmaking tips, but I try to stay away from that because like I don't want to be the best filmmaker on Instagram. I don't want to be a kid that's like helping other filmmakers. Like there's everyone and their mother does that. So it's like,
Yeah, and also with that, I mean, I know I just did the whole no niche thing, and I still do not believe in niches, but those are so drastically different. It would be very...
yeah, one big umbrella, small, or I guess one big tree trunk and then small branches.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about like layers to connect with someone. You like someone because they're running an Ironman, and then you find out.
Yeah.
But those layers are so far away from each other, I feel it would be unlikely that the same person who's watching mentality content would also want camera tutorials.
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
But I also, be well-rounded. I don't know. And so what about with the 28-year-old girl? I'm assuming the same
Yeah.
thing, the 9 to 5.
The same, leaving the 9 to 5 and navigating entrepreneurship, like building the mental strength and mindset to be able to like make that decision, because it's hard, like it's very hard. And the thing that I've learned from Tom, who did the cohort that I joined, I'll send you his information.
Yeah.
He's like, don't worry about have your 2 personas, but the main person being your younger self, and you targeting that one person is going to attract a handful of different other people, whether it's a 28-year-old, whether it's a 32-year-old dad that has 2 kids and he's like been working in whatever marketing or like sales, and he's like, yo, it's time for me to pivot. Like, this kid is doing something right. Like, I resonate with him from when I was younger. So it's interesting. Like, in his experience, he's been able to attract like guys like me, filmmakers, guys like parents or whatever, or like photographers or music producers, or like all these different people. And he even taps into, he does Ironman as well. Like he even brings in athletes now that want to build a personal brand, because I don't know, he's nailed it. He's absolutely nailed it. And he's built it so well and shared his experiences so strategically that he's connected with so many different types of people who all want the same thing. So it's like, yeah, I'm still definitely like navigating where and what the biggest solution, like the backbone of my business. And it's with growing on Instagram, with growth in general, like you have to test things and see what works. And so yeah, I'm still in a place now where like I can provide value in filmmaking or color grading, I guess, systemizing your content, mentality, and then building personal brand as well. Like, that's something that I don't feel 100% capable of like speaking on, this is how you should do it, because I haven't built it to where I want it to be. So once that's the case, I think that's more of the direction that I might take it.
That idea of directing your content at one person or 2 people, I think the best example of this is books. Tim Ferriss, in the 4-Hour Work Week, he wrote it to 2 people. It was very similar people to you who wanted to leave their 9 to 5. He was like the father of digital nomadship, and his book sold millions and millions of copies. But even beyond Tim Ferriss, you open a book, 90% of books say to my dad, to my friend. Why do they say that? because they're written to one person, but they appeal to millions.
Yeah.
So you actually, by being more specific, you are more appealing.
Yeah.
I will ask you my outro question now, which is, when you die, what do you want people to say about you?
That's tough.
I ask everyone the same thing.
Yeah, that's. I would hope that my family and friends, if I were to die, or when I die, or like if I were to die, or
When you die, what do you want people to say about you?
I want people to say that I was one of the hardest working people they know, and that I cared deeply about family and raising my family. I want people to say like he loved his car. He loved his car. He loved
That's a wild one.
he loved creating. And yeah, like he's a funny dude that did his own thing. It was always different since the time he was a kid, and hopefully they would say that I spread positivity to everyone around.
All right, Tim. Wonderful episode. Bro, hug out.
Well, it was great.
Thank you for going on the show. I appreciate that. Wrap it up here.